Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're zeroing in on a really crucial piece of the wedding puzzle, photography, and we're doing it by exploring one specific source. It's a fascinating, detailed FAQ guide from a London-based service called Hitched and Captured.
That's right. Capturing your wedding day is, well, it's about preserving a story, isn't it? And this guide gives us an incredibly transparent look into how one established photographer approaches that whole mission. It's packed with practical insights, really useful whether you're planning a wedding yourself or maybe you're just curious about the craft behind those amazing images you often see.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to unpack the core knowledge and the unique perspective that we found in this guide. We'll cover, well, basically everything from understanding their pricing and the booking steps right through to diving into their distinct artistic style, the specific gear they use, and, how they handle the actual wedding day timeline and all those important moments.
Yeah, think of this as getting inside the head of an experienced London photographer, seeing how they answer the questions couples ask most often. And what that tells us about their philosophy, their process, it's a proper deep dive into their world, offering takeaways you can probably apply more broadly.
Okay, so let's kick things off at the beginning, just like the guide does. Who is Hitched and Captured? They're introduced as a London-based wedding photography provider, founded and led by a photographer named Calvin Chinthaka.
And one detail that immediately jumped out at me is that Calvin is also a British fashion photographer. That kind of background, well, it must inform his aesthetic, his approach to weddings, surely. They also frame their role quite strongly. They don't just say they're a vendor you hire, but a trusted member of your wedding planning team. That phrasing really suggests a level of partnership, doesn't it? Involvement beyond just, showing up with a camera.
Interesting frame. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. The first major question for anyone planning a wedding is inevitably cost. And the guide is very upfront that they don't actually offer fixed packages. Why not?
Well, the reasoning is, and I'm quoting here, every love story is one of a kind, and your photography should reflect that.
Mm-hmm.
So what that tells us is their pricing is completely custom. It's tailored precisely to your day's unique needs. The scale of it, it signals they aren't just offering a standard off-the-shelf service.
Right, no cookie-cutter approach.
Exactly. They do provide a starting point, though, which is helpful. Their full-service wedding collections begin at £4,500, and they make it clear that any travel costs needed for your specific location, those are quoted separately.
Got it. So say you love their style, you've got your custom quote. How do you actually, lock in that date? Because those popular wedding dates, they tend to disappear pretty fast.
Yeah, good point. The booking process they outline seems pretty clear, actually. First, they send you a contract to look over. Then, to officially secure your date, you need two things. You need to send back the signed agreement, and you need to pay a 50% retainer.
And just to clarify for anyone maybe new to wedding planning, that retainer, it's basically a non-refundable deposit, right?
Yeah.
It holds your date, covers their initial planning time, that sort of thing.
Exactly that. And they request the signed contract back within about a week, which seems reasonable, to formally hold that date for you. The final balance isn't due immediately, which is definitely helpful for managing the budget flow during planning. It's actually due 4 weeks before the wedding day itself.
Okay, good to know those key milestones. Right, moving on to the look and feel, how do they actually capture the day's story? They describe their approach as a seamless blend of guided and candid moments. What does that mean in practice?
Well, this seems to be where that partnership idea with your planner comes in again. They mention working closely together to build a timeline that specifically carves out time for portraits, ideally in the best light, where they give gentle direction, but also, crucially, allows the space for those natural, unscripted interactions to just happen.
Ah, okay, so planning for spontaneity, almost.
Kind of, yeah. Their style is described as gentle direction, artistic styling, and documentary storytelling. The goal, they state, is capturing the feeling of the day, not just, a factual record of who was there.
That blend sounds really appealing. How do they navigate those specific, sometimes tricky moments during the day, like, say, the family photos?
Right, the family formals. They start with the core group,
Mm.
immediate family, so that's parents, siblings, grandparents. This helps streamline things, keeps it efficient. If you need additional groupings beyond that, like maybe specific cousins or groups of friends, you need to let them know at least 2 weeks beforehand.
Okay, that advance notice sounds key.
It really does. And they specifically mention this is especially crucial if you have complex family dynamics, blended families, step parents, making sure those lists are accurate and sensitive.
Makes sense. What about those huge checklists of every single photo combination someone might want? Do they need a really detailed shot list from the couple?
Interestingly, the guide says no need for a super detailed list. They approach the day with like a clear intention and understanding of the typical flow of a wedding. However, and this is important, communication is still vital. You absolutely should tell them about any truly special moments you're planning, specific heirlooms you definitely want photographed, or perhaps key people beyond the immediate family that you want them to prioritize.
So not a minute-by-minute list, but highlighting the must-haves.
Exactly. And they offer a really practical tip, too. Have your getting ready details, things like the rings, the dress, shoes, jewelry, all gathered together and ready in your getting ready space when they arrive.
Well, that's smart. Helps them hit the ground running and capture those aesthetic details right away.
Now, let's shift gears a bit to the technical side because that seems like a big part of their unique output. The source reveals they shoot with both film and digital cameras. Yes, this is a really defining characteristic of their style, isn't it? Probably influenced by that fashion background we mentioned. They mentioned using Canon 35mm cameras for both digital and film, it seems, but also classic medium format cameras. They list the Pentax 6x7 and Hasselblad.
Wow, medium format. That's known for incredible detail and resolution, especially for prints.
Absolutely. And they even specify using Kodak portrait film, which, as you probably know, is famous for its beautiful, warm, really flattering skin tones. But what's particularly unique, I thought, was their mention of some lenses being custom-made Sing-grade lenses that give silky filmock look.
Scene-grade lenses. That's not something you hear about every day in wedding photography.
Mhm.
Definitely sounds like it contributes to that artistic, almost cinematic quality.
I'd imagine so. It signals a real dedication to a specific aesthetic. So how do they actually blend these two formats on the day?
Yeah, how does that work practically?
Well, they aim for roughly a 50-50 split, shooting film for about half the day. Digital is primarily used when it's needed most, especially in low-light situations where film can be, let's say, more challenging. The final gallery they deliver is designed to be a seamless blend. They process both formats so they look cohesive together.
Okay, so you wouldn't necessarily know which was which unless you were told.
Probably not, if done well. And importantly, they stress they always come prepared. Camera backups, lens backups, memory card backups. Plus, they ensure their equipment is regularly serviced. That level of redundancy, well, it offers serious peace of mind for the couple, doesn't it?
It really does. You absolutely can't rewind a wedding day. So, okay, the big day is over. They've captured all those moments using film and digital. What's the delivery process like? How many photos can couples expect? And crucially, when can they expect to see them?
Right. They emphasize quality over quantity. So you're not going to get, thousands of slight variations or unedited shots. Instead, you receive a curated gallery. That's approximately 100 final images per hour of coverage they were there for. These are all carefully selected for content, composition, storytelling value. No duplicates, no awkward blinks making the final cut.
So, a really considered collection of the absolute best images and the timeline for receiving that gallery.
For engagement or portrait sessions, they estimate around 6 to 8 weeks. For the full wedding galleries, it's a bit longer, about 10-12 weeks after the wedding day. And the guide actually includes the line, "Great things take time, especially with film," which is a nice little nod to the extra steps involved in processing and scanning film.
That makes sense, setting expectations clearly. What if your collection includes an album?
If an album is part of your package, the first draft of that is typically sent about 8 weeks after you receive your full online gallery, so there's a bit more time involved there.
Okay. And what kind of retouching is included in that standard delivery process?
So, standard processing means all the final images you get are color-corrected and adjusted for exposure, so they look consistent and polished. For images that you might select specifically for prints or for the album, they include light retouching. They describe this as things like minor blemish removal, maybe addressing stray flyaway hairs, gentle enhancements, but always aiming to keep the photos looking natural and true to you.
Right, so not heavy-handed photoshopping. What if you do need more complex edits, like, I don't know, removing an entire object from the background?
Yeah, that kind of extensive editing, they say, is offered as a separate service. It's priced at £150 per hour. And importantly, they'll provide you with a specific quote for that work for your approval before they actually do it. That transparency is good.
Definitely. Okay, looking at other practicalities mentioned in the guide, do they offer videography themselves?
No, they clarify they do not offer video services directly, but they do have trusted filmmakers they often work with and are happy to recommend. They even mention one specific company, Pretty in White, as a favorite partner.
Good to know they have those connections if you're looking for both photo and video. And can the collections be customized beyond what's initially presented in their brochure or a quote.
Yes, absolutely. They confirm that collections can definitely be tailored based on the couple's specific dream list, which again just reinforces that custom bespoke approach they seem to favor.
Makes sense. How early do they typically arrive on the wedding day or even before?
They actually plan to arrive at least the morning before the wedding day itself, or before the first event they're covering, if it's a multi-day thing. For destination weddings, they often arrive even earlier than that.
Wow, that's quite early. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, it's not just about being punctual, it seems quite strategic. Arriving early gives them time to properly scout the venue, really understand the light at different times of day, and also start capturing some of those scene-setting details and the general atmosphere before things get really busy and hectic.
That sounds like really thorough preparation. And speaking of planning, their approach to contingencies is also covered, isn't it? What happens in that hopefully very rare event of an emergency or some unavoidable delay that prevents them from actually being there?
Right, the nightmare scenario for any couple. They state that while it's rare, they meticulously plan travel to arrive early and take care of their health to avoid issues in the first place. But in the unlikely situation where something truly unforeseen happens, illness, major travel disruption, they commit to one of two things. Quote, either find a trusted colleague with a similar style or fully refund your investment.
Okay, that's a significant promise. Finding a replacement with a similar style or getting a full refund provides a strong safety net.
It really does. It takes a huge weight off your shoulders knowing that's the plan. What about weather? Rain on the wedding day? That's such a common worry.
Yeah, definitely. Well, they seem to have a surprisingly positive perspective on it. They even say some of our favorite images were taken in the rain.
So they seem to embrace it. Rather than seeing it purely as a problem, they stress working closely with the planner to ensure there's always a solid weather plan, a backup option ready to go.
So embracing the unexpected, but with a plan.
Exactly. And if a wedding actually needs to be moved or rescheduled due to really severe weather or some kind of disaster, they state they'll handle that situation with care and flexibility. They acknowledge that every scenario is unique, so it's not a rigid, one-size-fits-all policy, but more a commitment to working with the couple to find a fair solution.
It really sounds like their entire process, based on this guide, is this really thoughtful integration of artistic vision. You know, that unique blend of film and digital, the focus on capturing feeling with incredibly diligent, practical planning, and really clear communication.
That's a perfect summary, I think. This deep dive into their FAQs really shows how a high-end photographer's process is built on, well, layers of both creative choices and meticulous logistical prep. And understanding this level of detail, all these considerations can really help you, the listener, ask the right questions and make much more informed choices when you're looking for someone to capture your own significant moments.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought to leave you with.
Yeah.
Consider how that deliberate blend they talk about, the timeless aesthetic of film, combined with the flexibility of modern digital, and how that, alongside the really detailed contingency planning they outline, reflects their commitment. It's a commitment to both the artistic integrity of the images and to ensuring absolute peace of mind for you on such a massively important day. What does that level of preparation, that transparency, really signal about the true value they place on capturing your unique story? Something to think about.